It can raise our body's blood pressure. It can increase our heart rate.
2020 has caused stress and anxiety for all of us this year. But no matter what struggles you're going through, you are not alone.
It can happen to anybody.
Now at 5:30, a reminder that it's healthy to talk about your anxiety, fears, and frustrations. And for this Mental Health Monday, we're spending the next half hour looking at different issues we focused on this year and how you can get help. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, 40 million U.S. adults deal with some form of anxiety every year. Experts say it's even more common in the pandemic. But there are ways to get your anxiety under control. 10's reporter Shannon Smith explains.
Anxiety impacts millions of people in millions of ways. It's so dependent on the person. Some people struggle to know if they're anxious or just stressed.
Anxiety begins to differ when we're feeling those same kind of intense emotions and heightened stress, but we have no event or challenge ahead of us.
Grayson Dulaney with the Mental Health Association of East Tennessee says if that stress remains constant for about 2 weeks, it could be diagnosed as anxiety.
So anxiety can occur at any time. It can raise our body's blood pressure. It can increase our heart rate.
Not every case of anxiety needs a therapist, just some self-care, whatever that means to you.
Find 3 to 4 activities that you know help to fill up your cup when it's starting to run a little low.
That may be yoga, meditating, or stretching, coloring in an adult coloring book, taking a walk, cuddling your pets, listening to your favorite music. Some people find using weighted blankets or eye masks calming. Others swear by essential oils and drinking more water. Dulaney says you don't need to rush out and buy an item to curb your anxiety. Your mind has a lot of power on its own. Try this exercise with me right now.
You put your hand over your belly, right above your belly button. You can place one hand on your chest as well. You just take a few deep breaths, and as you're breathing, you simply rub your belly. It just helps to settle our body's nervous system and bring us back into that present moment.
I'm Shannon Smith, reporting.
Adults aren't the only ones feeling the impact of the pandemic. Kids feel it in different ways, something experts are learning day by day. Shannon Smith explores how the pandemic could impact children later in life with some reassuring news for parents.
Whether it's loss of life, income, fear of getting sick, or just missing the old way of life, the pandemic is impacting everyone differently, and that includes babies and young children.
There's even infant mental health that is being studied now. That tells us that mental health is something that we are born with and can be nurtured from the get-go.
Licensed counselor and family therapist Melissa Rose said all the research done on child psychology wasn't done during a global pandemic, so professionals are adapting based on how they see kids behave.
As adults, we recognize that, and we have no clue what that would look like for a child, but we know that has to be a very overwhelming feeling for them.
The impacts of social distancing and isolation are sometimes easy to spot already.
We're seeing kids really regressing in a lot of areas. Obviously, social skills have, been impacted negatively. When they get out in the kind of real world and they have these social experiences, they have a little bit less maturity in that area.
Good news for parents, this can all be fixed. Rose said don't focus on hitting certain growth milestones at set times. Just be there to listen to and engage with your kids.
If there are delays in those areas, then that's to be expected. And we just kind of got to roll with it. We can definitely catch up and address those things when we can.
In Knoxville, I'm Shannon Smith.
And Rose said getting on the floor and playing with your kids like one of their peers can help with social development, and sticking with a routine helps them feel more at ease. Now, the Mental Health Association of East Tennessee says the number of people taking mental health screenings has increased fourfold this year compared to last. They blame that spike on COVID-19, but experts see it as an encouraging sign that more people are seeking help. Katie Inman shows us how to find free online mental health screenings.
A mental health illness is sometimes harder to identify from the outside looking in, but getting answers in mental health help can be as easy as 1, 2, 3 with a mental health screening.
The best way to find out if you need mental health care, take a free, anonymous mental health screen and get your result.
Ben Harrington, the CEO of the Mental Health Association of East Tennessee, says before the pandemic, about 200 people took the free screenings each month. Now they're averaging about 900. Here's how it works. Go to MHAET.com, click on Take a Screening. Then you'll choose which test option relates most to you. You'll answer each question on the page, then at the end, you'll get your results and next steps. If you're struggling to keep your head above water, seek help. Not everyone has to see a therapist, but it's important for you to have someone in your life to talk to. You don't have to fight alone. I'm Katie Inman reporting.
On Mental Health Mondays, we want to encourage you to do weekly mental health check-ins and reach out to your loved ones. We have more resources on our website. Coming up, many people have struggled with mental health issues, thinking no one else would understand. Hear from 3 people sharing their personal battles so you know you are not alone. Plus, we may call it the most wonderful time of the year, but that's not the case for everyone. Hear from experts about how to deal with the anxiety and stress brought on by the holiday season. Well, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, but not everyone sees this as the most wonderful time of the year. The winter holidays can trigger stress, anxiety, and depression, especially this year. Reporter Shannon Smith shows us how to put your mental health first.
Twinkling lights, Christmas trees, Santa Claus, they're everywhere you look now. For some, this is exciting. For others, it can hurt.
You're struggling to be, in that holiday mindset when you have these other things going on in your life.
Family therapist Melissa Rose says holidays can heighten emotions, and it's important to feel them all the way through.
Whether it be a job loss, financial struggles, or a loss of a loved one or something like that, you're going to have sadness or frustration or whatever, feeling you're experiencing, and just acknowledging that as normal.
Because prioritizing your mental health is still important year-round.
Life doesn't stop just because it's the holiday season.
If being with or without your family this year has you hurting, there are ways to take care of yourself. Find healthy ways to cope. Get outside, listen to music, call your mom. Take time for yourself. It's okay to say no to some things you're expected to do every year if it means getting some much needed rest and alone time. Check in on your loved ones. Telling people you feel a little different this year will help those who need to talk know you'll listen. And make new traditions. It doesn't take money or a road trip to make memories with your family that will outlast any physical gift.
Just let yourself be and allow it to look however it looks, and just try to make the best of the time that you have.
In Knoxville, I'm Shannon Smith.
Well, many people go through tough times in life thinking no one will understand. Coming up, hear from 3 people sharing struggles they went through to show you are not alone.
I always felt insecure, less than, not enough.
And that feeling of being out of control is scary and it's shameful.
Suddenly I'm on my own.
Mental Health Mondays are meant to remind you that you are not alone. Last month, we shared 3 news stories in our You Are Not Alone series. These stories aren't meant to offend, hurt, or trigger bad memories, but to simply start a conversation. First tonight, we hear Rico's story of attempting suicide.
My life was a mess. As a Black child growing up in a predominantly white community, I always felt insecure, less than, not enough. I just felt like I didn't fit in. I was on an athletic scholarship. I was playing basketball, and there was a lot of pressure there. Before then, I had began to drink and use marijuana. So that was like an outlet to cope with the feelings I was having. My first suicide attempt was when I was 19 years old, and there were 3 more after that. A friend of mine, she had found me. I think that really saved my life. But there was always someone around, and I believe that I was just crying out for help. The disease of addiction does not discriminate. It can happen to anybody. So I just felt as though if I did this, I won't be able to feel the emotions that I was feeling at the time. I went to jail, and I just got on my knees and I prayed, and I said, God, please just take all these desires away from me. And I believe at that moment, I was delivered from it, and I haven't had a craving to drink, to use drugs, or even a suicidal thought. When someone tells me, don't give up on my child, please don't give up on my child, that gets me every time. And I don't, they may give up on themselves, but I'll keep going. And there's such a stigma on asking for help because that's a sign of weakness. In the African American community, especially for males, we don't talk about our feelings. And that's what leads us to those behaviors. And once you display to them that you care about them, then it all changes for them. I don't want to be back in the ER with a tube down my throat again, ever again. That's why I work really hard on taking care of myself now. It's taking a lot of therapy and a lot of work and a lot of therapy and a lot of work. It's like a slingshot. The more you get pulled back and pulled back, that's the farther your trajectory is going to go. My name is Rico Hopewell, and I have attempted suicide, and you are not alone.
And if you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide, help is available. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is open 24 hours a day, every day of the year. Well, it's something 28 million Americans will struggle with in their lifetime: eating disorders. Here's Caitlin's story of overcoming an eating disorder.
So it was probably my freshman year of high school when I started to feel like my body was not like other girls. I thought that by changing what I looked like, I would get some form of acceptability or affirmation from other people. So at first it was really subtle. I was just being a good athlete. I was doing extra training sessions. I was eating a lot healthier for the sake of my sport. I was mostly getting affirmation from other people of how good I was looking, and so that felt like a motivation to keep going. And I was always at a normal weight. Most people just thought I was really lean, and it kind of just went unnoticed. It just kind of progressed, and I couldn't maintain the restriction anymore. So restrictions turned into binges. I'd feel so guilty about binging that I would purge, and then the cycle just kind of kept progressing. I was getting worse at my sport because I couldn't make it up and down the basketball court. My reproductive systems weren't gonna work the same way if I didn't gain more body fat. They said that I probably couldn't have kids, and that was kind of my wake-up call of, okay, this isn't just me getting thin, this is a problem. And that feeling of being out of control is scary, and it's shameful, and I had never really heard of anyone having an eating disorder. I mean, lots of tears, being able to just say it out loud that I'm not okay, was really huge for me. I have probably 180'd in a lot of senses. I look back at some of the things I used to do, and I'm just like, I just feel so sad for that girl. I don't just eat salad when I go out to eat. I'll have more than one slice of pizza. I honor my hunger and my fullness. There's a whole sector of people that are just trained to help people with eating disorders turn around 5 years later. It's what I'm doing now. My body was uniquely created the way it was, uniquely designed. So how can I choose to love it instead of criticizing it? My name is Caitlin Tucker. I have had an eating disorder, and you are not alone.
And if you or someone you know is struggling with an eating disorder, there is help. Dietitians and counselors like Caitlin can help at Focus Integrative Centers in Knoxville, and the National Eating Disorders Association has help and support online. One man shares the trauma of a decades-long marriage ending in divorce. So those going through the same thing know they're not alone. Here's Charles's story.
Yeah, we dated for about 2 years before we got married, and we were married for 30 years until 2019. My divorce was swift and brutal. People ask me, why did you get divorced? And I'm like, I'm really not sure. My wife just looked across from me at the dinner table and said, I don't love you anymore and we're done. I want a divorce. Here you are, me, a man in my mid-50s. Suddenly I'm on my own. One of the most bothersome things about my divorce was the impact it had on my children and my family. There are millions of divorced people on the planet. That is no comfort to me at all. And mostly divorce is just sad. I was able to reach inside myself and find some courage to just, sorry. I accepted the harsh reality of what was going on. Once you have that moment of acceptance, that's when you start to heal. I attended a divorce care program at a local church, saw a therapist, but mostly I just had to deal with it on my own. Married people think they understand divorce, but they really do not. And that's nothing against them. I hope they never experience it. But until you go through it, you don't realize the depth of it, the magnitude of it. It's not selfish to focus on yourself because you have got to heal. And if I don't go through this hell, I never meet her. She's really amazing and beautiful. I keep telling her, you could date anybody, but you choose me, and she chooses me. Moving on is not a good phrase, because that means my marriage didn't mean anything. No, but I'm moving forward, and there's a difference. My name is Charles Denny. My marriage ended after 30 years. You are not alone.
And if you or someone you know is going through a divorce, there are resources out there. Divorce Care has support group meetings in our area. There are several counselors and therapists that specialize in divorce and programs like STEPS that focus on co-parenting. We have more information at WBIR.com. Well, coming up, it's been a tough year for everyone, including your loved ones. But sometimes it's hard to find the right words to ask about their mental health. Hear from an expert on the best way to check in. For this Mental Health Monday, we're reminding you that you are not alone. But we also want you to remember to check in on your loved one's mental health. 10 News reporter Katie Ann then explains how you can check on them when you don't know what to say.
Sometimes all it takes is a simple message from a loved one to let out what you're feeling mentally, or to even start seeking help from a therapist. I know because I and about 20% of our population in East Tennessee need mental health treatment. For me, treatment helps with my diagnosed anxiety and depression. But how do you reach out to someone to check in when you don't know what to say?
Hey, how are you is not so bad, an opening, but you know what we're going to get when we ask a closed-ended question? We're going to get a very simple answer, and it's going to be okay. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm fine. That doesn't really tell you enough.
Harrington says it's important to pay attention to your loved one's behaviors and bring up when they aren't acting like themselves in a non-judgmental way. Not everyone will be willing to tell you exactly what's going on immediately, but keep offering your support. Saying something is better than nothing. I'm Katie Inman reporting.
And we certainly thank you for watching 10 News at